Okay, so this whole movie is about how DuPont and Teflon was killing us for years? Can I join this lawsuit? I feel so dumb too because I didn't even know anything about this. Well, let's get into today's movies. Dark Waters.
Blake, ain't you been there before? Yeah, I've been there a time or two.
This is a movie starring Mark Ruffalo, who most people know as the Incredible Hulk from the MCU movies, and he plays Robert Bilott, who is a lawyer who represents one of the companies his firm represents is DuPont. And what they basically do is they help anyone who tries to sue these big companies about science stuff. One of these days he has someone from his grandmother's hometown in West Virginia come up to him and say, hey, this company's poisoning my land. I need you to defend me. Of course, Robert doesn't buy it. He looks at him as the local yokel and says, no, I'm going to do it. But as he goes back to his grandmother's hometown and finds out that this gentleman by the name of Wilbur Tennant, who is played by Bill Camp, is showing him that like his land is being polluted, his cows are dying, strange things are happening in the town to the people of the town. All of a sudden Robert decides to get into it and he dives head deep into basically what was, according to this movie's timeline, a 17-year fight with a giant company about everything from you're responsible for poisoning these people, you knew this was happening and continued to let it go. You paid off lobbyists in the government, what a shocker, to hide this information, and all these other various loopholes in this movie, Dark Waters. I thought it was really good when it was good, and I thought at times it shot itself in the foot. One of the problems with this movie is the fact that it does take a large span. This goes from 1998 all the way to 2015. And at times there are time jumps that really look like they don't matter as far as a storytelling perspective. Also, I don't think I kind of like the fact that every time they jump years, it would go to black, almost as if this was made for TV, go to a commercial break, or in the case of the way the movie was framed, once they would jump timelines, the movie would stop, screen would go black, a line bar would go across the bottom of the screen, and it'll tell you what year it flashed forward into. And there were a couple of times where I felt, especially the first time it did it, when it jumped from 98 to 2000, it was almost like, why did we jump here? And no information was given about what's happening between the timelines. That's another problem with the storytelling in this movie. The movie is presented almost like a thriller, which it is not. And also because of the stakes of the movie, where it's about this huge lawsuit, it's not really about a lawsuit. It's more or less Mark Ruffalo's character going through this lawsuit and how it affects him in different ways. And so the trailer is almost very deceiving because it makes it look like a thriller, and more or less it's Mark Ruffalo being paranoid. I also didn't like Anne Hathaway's character. Anne Hathaway's in this movie, believe it or not. She plays Robert's wife as Sarah, and she's really just a reactionary wife. What I mean by reactionary wife is Robert would come into the room and say, hey, I have good news. She would go, oh, hooray! And in other scenes, Oh, I have bad news. Oh, boo-hoo. That's literally it. That was the depth of her character in this movie. I'm not blaming it on Anne Hathaway. I'm blaming it on the writers. And maybe they should have added a little bit of nuance or depth to her. In fact, she has one of the most cringe-worthy scenes, or she has two of them, in this movie, and they were in order of her appearance back to back. Of course, the court case is being dragged out, where she complains and goes, "Oh, you can't. This case is consuming you. You're not paying attention to the kids. You can barely talk. It's affecting our marriage." She complained, blah blah blah. Next scene, something happens to Robert, and in the next scene where she appears in, dealing with the aftermath of something that happened to Robert, she starts complaining to the boss of the law firm, going, "Oh, you made him feel like nothing. This is your fault." And I'm not gonna lie, and excuse my language if you find it offensive, as soon as I saw that movie, you fucking cunt, you just fucking complained about him. You made him feel bad. You are the problem as well. I don't know who... The way, and I know there is a time jump in between, so something could have happened, but we don't know this. All we know is the last scene we saw him, she complained and bitched to him and made him feel like shit. And then the next scene, she's gonna complain and bitch to the boss that he's making him feel like shit. And I'm like, what are you, fucking retarded? There's no way that should have happened in that movie. She could have probably complained about several other things. No, she couldn't have complained about anything because she's just as bad as supposedly he was. Actually, in the movie, Mark Ruffalo's boss showed him more compassion and was actually a better person than Anne Hathaway's character, Sarah. But I found that those two back-to-back scenes made no sense, and I literally screamed in the middle of the movie theater. People did look at me. But yeah, I didn't care for that at all. So I know it sounds like I'm talking way too much about the bad, because that's kind of something I had to get out there. But the good, Mark Ruffalo, he does a really good job at this movie. He emotes well, he acts, when he has to deliver lines, when he has to be a reactionary character, he has the right facial expressions. He really is the driving force for this movie as the lead, also as a producer on the movie. I thought he was really good. I thought this movie blended in a nice sense of humor into the movie. There were parts where you would literally flash forward a year or two just to hear a court case, and then there were some funny lines in there. But yeah, I thought he was really good, and he definitely carried the movie. Bill Pullman is in this movie for a cameo, and I really liked it. Even though he came off as a drunk attorney, especially when he was talking in his court case, like, why does he sound like they just picked him up from across the street from the bar and said, try to say these lines without slurring, but he still had the charm to carry it. Bill Camp as Wilfred Tennant, as the person who brings this case to Robert. He's so believable as a southern farmer. Like, the first time I saw him, I couldn't understand what he was saying at first. It took me a while in my northern dialect to understand what he was saying. But he was a driving force for a lot of the movie. And even in situations where he wasn't there, he came, his influence did mean something to Mark. So I really liked that. I wasn't particularly thrilled with the way the movie was shot. It was kind of your basic thing, nothing nuanced except for one sideways shot of Mark walking through the hallway and decided to shoot it like this. That's it. Basically shot movie, nothing great. Score didn't really hit me one way or the other. I did find the story very intriguing though. And since this did happen between 98 and 2015, I was like, I lived through all those years. I kind of, and as more of the movie presented interesting ideas or interesting facts, this is based on a true story, so you always have to look at it with a bit of a, a sideways glance. I was like, holy shit, how did people let this happen? And especially as DuPont drags the case out, you kind of get that feeling where like, wow, this could happen to anyone. Especially when they start talking about lobbyists and, this huge corporation has all the money in the world, and if they want, they can stomp you out. That was very eye-opening, or it wasn't eye-opening, I should say. It was very like, wow, that actually could happen. So I like that. I also like the fact that while they were talking about the different conditions that can happen to you when you mess with this this chemical, this man-made chemical, and what was going wrong with the people being born with one nostril, with their eyes messed up, people gaining all different types of cancers throughout the years. It was nice to know that there were actually characters in the movie who were real life people, including a person named Bucky. I won't say what was his issue, but when I finally saw him at the end, and then right before the credits, when they revealed that's the real person, I was like, wow. So it can be emotional at times. You do feel for the people when they get their reprisals, but you also feel like heartbroken when you have to realize, well, big business can win if they want to. There's a lot of things. I actually like this movie. I know I started with the bad, but it doesn't affect how I like the good. I liked Mark Ruffalo's performance. This is a very interesting story, and this is a story that really should be seen by more people. I'm going to give Dark Waters a 7. It comes out this weekend, limited release. It'll be released wider coming up in December, so I hope everyone sees it. If you're going to see it, let me know in the comments below. If you've already seen it, I know it just came out today, or plan on seeing it, let me know as well. And if you do, let me know your thoughts. That's it for today. It's late. I need to go to bed. Bye.